I I want to start, for a minute and talk about home ownership at a personal level. I came out of a family in central Pennsylvania. My dad ultimately became a career soldier. But before that, on the GI Bill, he went to college. While he was doing that, we lived in an apartment above a gas station right on the square in Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. And we rented. Then my dad went in the Army and we went wherever Uncle Sam sent us. And we were always in Army housing and we rented. And I remember the feeling my mother had after my dad retired. And they finally were able to buy a house and move into their property that was their house that they could take care of, that they were proud of. Now, Callista's had a different background. She grew up in Whitehall, Wisconsin, town of 1,600. In the late 1950s, her parents bought the house they now live in. And over the years, they improved it, they expanded it, and the pride they take. Her mother's still here. Her father passed away a few years ago. But her mother's pride in their work that they put into their home, their sense of a homestead, is what America is all about. And I just want to say that those who, live in high-rise apartment buildings writing for fancy newspapers in the middle of town after they ride the metro, who don't understand that for most Americans, the ability to buy a home, to have their own property, to have a sense of belonging, is one of the greatest achievements of their life. And it makes them feel like they're good, solid citizens. It gives them a place to root their children and their grandchildren and have a better future. So I have been very involved for a very long time in trying to make sure that we had the kind of program that enables every American to have a chance at buying a home. Now, that doesn't mean every American understands how to budget. It doesn't mean every American should be lured into buying a house that they can't sustain. And it doesn't mean that every American knows how to take care of a house without some training. So I got very involved in the 1990s with Habitat for Humanity, because Habitat for Humanity attracted people who were willing to help build their own home. And I remember being in Sacramento at a house that was being built, and the family that was there, and the father was a cook, and the one daughter, who was about 8 years old, took me into the place that was going to be her bedroom that they were building, where they'd ask her what she wanted. And you can't imagine the sense of pride and the sense of belonging that she had from that experience. So let me say, first of all, we need to learn from the lessons of the last 4 or 5 years. But what we need to learn is not how to turn our back on home ownership. It's not how to turn our back on helping every American have a chance to own a house. What we have to learn is how to create a stable, safe mortgage system, and how to help develop a system where folks who've never before had a house learn how to budget, learn how to take care of their house, learn how to be involved, so that ultimately we can say to every American, if you're willing to work and you're willing to learn, you too can have a chance to be a property owner, and you too can be a citizen of America. My good friend J.C. Watts and I have a deep mutual commitment. We believe that when the Founding Fathers wrote in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That they actually meant every American. And it took time to work it out. We had terrible problems of slavery. We had terrible problems working our way through women's rights. We had terrible problems of segregation. America's never been perfect. But the ideal of America is a wonderful thing. And we're still wrestling with it. How do we work together so that every child in America genuinely has the opportunity to pursue happiness? Notice, it's pursue. There's no guarantee of happiness. There's no suggestion in the Declaration of Independence that what we need are happiness stamps for for the underhappy, or that you ought to have the right to sue if you feel unhappy, or that we're going to redistribute happiness so that if this side's overly happy, we'll take part of it and give it to this side over here. That's not what we say. What we say is each of you and every one of your children and your grandchildren has the right to get up every morning and have a dream and work hard and learn every day and pursue that dream. Now, I'm going to sign the pledge to defend the mortgage deduction. But I also want to make a point. I want to make two sets of points about the mess we're in. One about how the government has failed the average American, and one about the right strategy for getting out of it. When I see hundreds of billions of dollars given away, so if you're big enough, you get the money. If you're a French bank, you get $19 billion. If you're Goldman Sachs, you get $13 billion out of AIG from the federal government. Now, somehow that money didn't exactly trickle down. You go talk to folks whose mortgages are underwater, they somehow don't get the same break as a multinational bank. You talk to the folks who are going to pay the taxes and pay off the debt, they somehow don't get the break. And I just want to say to all of you, I believe we should have an audit, and every American should have the right to know where did every penny go, who got it, why did they get it, and why are we on the hook for it? And there's some counter pressure among the elites about raising questions, but let me tell you, the American people have the right to know, and people who are going to run for high office have an obligation to be transparent and available to the American people, because without that knowledge, how do you really have a free society? If the Federal Reserve can send trillions of dollars without accountable to anybody, how do we, the people, meet our obligation? So I want you to know I am committed to we, the people, being real. I'm committed to us knowing what's going on. And the reason is, if we can't figure out in 08, 09, and 10 what went wrong, how are we going to fix it for the future? So we need a lot more knowledge about who got in trouble and who got bailed out and who didn't get bailed out and where the money came from and how much we're still on the hook for. And with your help and your support, I'm going to actively pursue that. But let me talk about the future. I'll tell you the number one thing we could do that would be relatively easy, that would start turning around the housing market and start turning around the economy overnight, is real simple. Repeal the Dodd-Frank bill, and you immediately are better off. So I've taken the position that if, with your help, I become the president, I will ask the new Congress when it comes in on January 3rd to stay in session, not go home, stay in session, and I will ask them, before I'm sworn in on January 20th, to pass 3 repeals. To repeal Obamacare, which is killing small business, to repeal Dodd-Frank, which is killing small banks, small business, and housing, and to repeal Sarbanes-Oxley, which has added tons of paperwork to no advantage to anybody. Now, if the Congress will do that before the 20th, then on the first day in office, I will sign all 3 repeals, and we can start getting back down to work, creating jobs in America. Let me also say to you, the number one key to bringing housing values back up is to create jobs. If we create jobs in sufficient quantity, prices will naturally rise because people will be able to pay for it, and as people's incomes go up, they're going to have a desire to live better, to move into better homes, and to be more engaged. And so I'm committed, and you can go to newt.org, you'll see an entire program for zero capital gains tax to bring in hundreds of billions of dollars to get us started. A 12.5% corporate tax rate, which will both make us competitive everywhere in the world and will enable us to bring back home $700 billion in profits that are locked up overseas, and we'll actually get General Electric to pay taxes because there'll be a low enough rate, they'll fire the lawyers and pay the tax. something for all the home builders. I'm for 100% expensing so you could write off all new investments in 1 year so American workers have the most modern equipment in the world to be the most productive, the most efficient, and the most creative so we can compete with China and India and we can win. And I am for abolishing the death tax permanently so that everybody is in a position to know that if you work hard your whole life, politicians won't rip you off when you die. Now, having said that, on the tax side, we also need an American energy policy, and I'm going to apply it right here to South Carolina. We need to have a policy of generating so much energy that we don't care what happens in the Middle East. We need a policy of generating so much energy that no American president ever again bows to a Saudi king. And let me give you the South Carolina part because it gets pretty good. We should immediately begin developing the $29 billion of natural gas offshore, which is worth $80,000 a job if you look at what happens in Louisiana. Now, those are good, high-paying jobs. We should have an agreement that the state gets half the money and the feds get half the money, which helps you avoid tax increases in South Carolina, and we should take part of that money and use it to finish modernizing the port of Charleston so it is prepared to receive big new ships when the Panama Canal is open in 2014. And so now you got jobs out of energy, you got jobs at the port, but let me go one step further. The Boston Consulting Group said in August that by 2015 it will be less expensive in total cost, energy, paperwork, everything, less expensive to manufacture in South Carolina than to manufacture in China. I want to be here as your president. When you apply all the new tax provisions I've described, when you get things up and running, when you have manufacturing rebuilt on a grand scale, when you have that port modernized, I want to be here with you for the first container ship that leaves Charleston carrying manufactured goods to Shanghai, so we're back in business manufacturing. If you have a job-creating program, and when I was Speaker, we created 11 million jobs working with Bill Clinton in 4 years. When I was a junior member working with Ronald Reagan, we created 1,300,000 jobs in 1 month, August of 1983. And if you take the entire period and apply it to our current population, it'll be 25 million jobs in 7 years. So I know how to create jobs. If we create the jobs, housing prices are going to start back up. If we get rid of Dodd-Frank, housing prices are going to start back up. If we have the kind of policies that protect home mortgages, housing prices are going to start back up. If we then make it relatively easy to buy the equipment, to be in business, to have a low tax rate so home builders can build housing, we're going to see once again a renewal of the American home building industry, a renewal of American homes, and a reestablishment of the right to live in your own home as a key part of the American system. I am with you. I want your help, but I want to help you. Together, we're going to get America back on the right track. Thank you, good luck, and God bless you. Thank you, Newt. Now, do I